Hi, welcome to Tarot Combos. We're going to draw two cards from the Wild Unknown Tarot deck, which is, it's a classic now. I think there are now some contemporary modern classic tarot decks, and this is one of them. And let's see what energy is here today. Okay, so we have the World challenged by the King of Wands. The King of Wands. So I think the immediate question that I'm feeling is like in this idea that a cycle has come to completion or is coming to completion. The question might be, how am I harnessing my energy for what's to come? Don't you feel like sometimes in that they can feel like a liminal space, like when we're it's 11:11, when we're between we kind of and it's not like a cycle ending has a clear line in the sand, does it? Usually it's like this feeling of like, well, to me, here's what I feel. There's like a almost like a building up to like some crescendo or some climax of a feeling that's been growing for a while. And so you feel like it's grown to a point where it's like, this is it, right? Like, is this finally run its course? Is it all that it can be? I'm not saying good, bad, whatever. It's just like it feels like a fullness has mounted. That feels like we're coming to some completion. And so what happens after that a lot of times is a feeling of like unsettledness or like shaky ground, or like we're trying to bring this thing in for a landing, whatever it is. That's why it's hard to describe in like a big zoomed out sense without talking about a specific thing. But I think a lot of these things, like a lot of our cycles have these feelings, this mounting energy, it's something of fullness. Like, is this all that it's going to be? Has it run its course? It feels like a growing, and then like almost like we're recalibrating something when we're coming in for a landing. And we don't know all the time we're coming in for a landing. That's why it's like this weird liminal space of like a little bit of confusion. It's like clearing the space after or during and after the landing of this cycle, and so that something new can come in, but maybe we're not even clear what's coming in. And a lot of times we don't know something has ended until the new thing has begun. And that's maybe, I'm getting all the chills with it. So that may be why the King of Wands is showing up in the challenge position, is because it's like sometimes we're often running into a new direction without really stopping and saying, oh my God, a big cycle in my life, a big phase, a big chapter has come to a close. How do I want to harness my energy for the new phase, the new chapter, or what's coming in, or the new way I want to show up in the world, instead of just, acting my old scripts? This is like harnessing also the power of the present moment in the liminal space to say, how could the next chapter, the next phase, the next cycle start off differently? Is there an opportunity I don't want to miss? Because the King of Wands has this like, he has like the biggest energy. What the challenge, because he's in the challenge position, it's like, oh, well, it's big energy. How do we harness it? It's wild that this stuff keeps showing up this week in these readings. So what is it right now where you feel like we're on the brink of something new, and we're being asked to like really tend to our energy source. What is fueling it? What is keeping it fueled? How do I, like before we talked about the channel, how do we, and that's all about harnessing this energy, not letting it leak out, whatever, not letting it fire off in all the directions. And then we're in that confused, that state of confusion and like shaky ground for a little longer than we need to be, really. It's fine to be there a while. And then at some point, okay, let's like harness this energy, harness my own intention, my own ideas, my own creativity, like all that energy. There's all kinds of energy in us. It's like, how am I going to, like, as we've crescendoed, that word, the denouement of a movie? I just love that word. And it's because I was thinking of this with the cycles. You guys, I'm not even in the right view. Here you go. Now you can see the cards. There. And in the movie world, I guess, because I just love film and storytelling, really. This is a storytelling thing where there's like the climax, but that's not the end of the movie. What if the movie just ended right here? And you're like, but what happens when they go back home to their normal life? Like in Joseph Campbell's, like to the ordinary world when they return after all the chaos that's happened. What do they take back with them? What did they learn? How did they grow? If we just stop at the climax, it's like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like completion. That's why I feel like cycles are like that. They build and then they come in for some sort of landing. And it's almost like we're being asked maybe in here. It's like, well, we also want to tend to our energy in the landing. Do you ever feel that way? I'm thinking of like relationships when they're coming to an ending. Sometimes we're done before the director calls cut. Just to bring it back to film. You know that feeling when we're just like, I'm done and I don't think I can come back from this. Well, there's a done feeling, and this goes for more than just relationships. Probably shouldn't talk about relationships. That feels kind of sad. But it's a human experience of like, man, I'm just done. But now I've got to still like tend to our closure. If I want to be a decent human about it, and I always haven't been. But like if I want to tend to the closure of something, there's this like, well, let's really figure out how to bring this in for a landing that makes us both feel like we're doing the right thing by going separate directions, like starting our own new chapter. We're not just going to leap into the new chapter. We need closure. And I think needing closure, is such a human thing. There's like, so maybe that's what this is about too. This like, we don't always know. A lot of times I feel like we just want to run off to the new thing. And to me, it's like very, hey, is this kind of like an avoidance strategy? I don't want to tend to the closure. It feels hard and vulnerable and like brings up old stuff about the whole reason I'm trying to avoid it in the first place. And it could like not feel great. But once we've done it, if we really, I love the phrase tended to our closure. When we really do that, don't you just feel more at peace in starting the new chapter? It's like a clean feeling. It's like so clean. And so I think that's showing up here as well. It's all about how we're tending to this energy of, after, like when cycles are ending, we're not just going to leap from the climax of this cycle into a new one. We haven't brought it in for a nice landing. We haven't learned all that we were meant to learn from the experience, because the lessons don't happen here. The integration of the lessons don't happen at the climax. In the hero's journey, the lessons are integrated when the hero goes home to the ordinary world and says, look what I brought back. And now I'm going to relearn how to live in the world I started out from. Even though I've been through so much, I'm still going to go back home to my people, but now I'm different. And how do I want to show up now in my ordinary world? I love storytelling. So what did this bring up for you? Does it feel like like a little call out? You know how sometimes you're like, you don't know me, and then you're like, oh shit, because I feel like I call myself out on this one where it's like I just wanted to leapfrog from climax to climax of experience, from the peak moment, because I know, oh shoot, something's ending, I gotta leap to a new thing, and I didn't even know what the new thing was, or I saw the first new thing and I was like, yes, let's leap. That looks exciting. No closure, no closure. Oh my God. And it catches up. Trust me. It definitely catches up. And then you got to still tend to the closure. But this time there's like so much time and distance has passed that it's not as clean as it could have been. And then I've had all this time where I've had to deal with the feelings of not having the good landing. Like I had bumpy landings, and it's like that's hurt on top of hurt every time you bounce in a bumpy landing or land something in a bumpy field instead of on a smooth runway. So yeah, I think that's about it. It just reminds me that the whole world, the only constant is change, and we're constantly going through chapters in our lives, right? If we are one to like tend toward growing, changing, allowing ourselves to grow and change, then we have these portions of life that do feel like chapters, like they're little bookends, like there's like a new big heading on the next one. It doesn't feel like just one, like not if we tending to our growth. So I love that, because it feels like as humans we're good with like time boxing things, or like, okay, I'm only in this cycle or in this chapter for a certain length of time, I'm going to make the most of it. But in order to make the most of it, I do have to tend to my energy. Like, what am I putting into it? What am I infusing into this chapter that's going to make it the most juicy part of my book, like, versus like, blah, I'm just like stream of consciousness writing and nothing makes sense and it doesn't really amount to anything, and you know what I mean? So it makes me feel like, okay, I'm in this chapter right now. If I kind of want to do this experiment. I'm just riffing. I haven't thought about this, but it's like, what would the title of this chapter be that I'm in right now? Okay, let's think of a title. And then what would be, who are like the main characters besides me? Obviously, I'm the main character in my own book. And especially in this chapter, like, who are my my second and third like main characters? And then what's the big challenge we're dealing with? And then what are each of our strengths and opportunities for growth of all the main characters? And how do we feed off each other to make each other, because we're all in this together, like if you believe in soul contracts and all that good stuff. But we really do have relationship, and we kind of show up with each other as mirrors, as co-pilots, as bosom buddies. Is that a word? I never saw that show. Tom Hanks, 80s. Anyway, where we like help each other or we challenge each other or both, because I think both, those are like the same thing. And through this chapter, and then by the end, so where are we starting in this chapter, and where do we feel like we're going to end up? And so how do I want to show up through this chapter? How am I using my energy? Is this a chapter of where I go deeply inward and I'm the only character in this chapter, and I'm doing all the self-care and I'm doing self-exploration and journaling, and like there's still a challenge, there's still a growth arc, there's still so much to do and learn and experience even when I'm going in. Or is this a chapter where I'm like bursting out on the scene and I'm like, hey people, here's what I have to offer, and you're out there doing stuff in the world, whatever. And so it's just like so fun to think about, because our life, sometimes I get in the trap of like, my life has to be about this now, forever and ever, amen. It's like, no, it's just a freaking chapter. I have no idea what the next chapter is going to hold. But if I kind of have this vision of like my story arc for this chapter of like, what am I going through? What challenges am I trying to overcome and integrate the lessons learned? Because that's going to inform what happens in my next chapter. That I obviously can't write the next chapter yet. I haven't gone through this one. What if maybe authors work this way? I don't know. But what if they tried to write like these different chapters, and then maybe then they try to weave it together somehow after the fact? But then it's like, how do you know what your characters are like by the time they get way down the path of this book, right? I just love storytelling. So anyway, what did this bring up for you? What chapter are you in? Do you need some closure? How are you harnessing your energy for the next one? For the next chapter? Who are your characters that are really important in this chapter, in this phase of life? And each chapter can be a different length. Some chapters are like only a page, and it's like, isn't that great? And some go on forever with very descriptive, flowery, beautiful language, like paragraphs and paragraphs of just describing the scenery. What's your life like? Tell me. Bye.